Hi, and welcome to Axelbank Reports History and Today, conversations with America's top nonfiction authors and why their books matter right now. I'm Evan Axelbank, and today we're going to speak with Dr. Vaughn Joy, the author of Selling Out Santa, Hollywood Christmas Films in the Age of McCarthy. This is her first book, and she is a film critic and also an expert on the movie industry here in America. Thanks so much for being here, Dr. Joy. What a great name that is, Dr. Joy.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it really is kind of like nominative determinism, right? That
Yeah, right.
Dr. Joy studies Christmas.
Dr.
Yeah,
Joy.
could have been a
Uh,
bit more creative, I guess.
yeah, no, it's perfect. We are also thrilled to be welcoming you to the show because we've already interviewed your husband, Dr. Ben Railton, in September of 2020, back when this was just a wee infant of a podcast, episode number 13. His book is
Mm,
called Of Thee I Sing. This is going to be episode 193. So that is 180 episodes ago. We had Dr. Railton.
wow.
We've grown a lot since then. You are now the first husband and wife pair who have appeared as guests on the show. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. We love to hear it. We
Yeah.
we have recently become public with our marriage because we launched a public scholarship site to get together. So what an exciting thing. We'll have to add this
Very
on there.
cool. Before
Yeah.
we get into the Christmas movies, I want to invite listeners to our Patreon page to ask for your support in keeping the show going. Go to patreon.com/axelbankhistory. We will donate part of your contributions to a charity for children's literacy. This is the time of year when Christians and even non-Christians pick a number of special ways to celebrate Christmas. There are decorations, family gatherings, there's church, there's presents, there's Santa, and of course, there are favorite movies. How many haven't debated their favorite Christmas movie? For me, it's Home Alone. Before we get all heated over that, though, my first question is what makes Christmas the perfect holiday to capture in a movie? Why not, let's just say, Easter, July 4th, Passover, Veterans Day, Flag Day? Why is it Christmas? What happened there?
That's an excellent question. And I think it is part of this just really long history that Christmas in America, the American Christmas, is as diverse and complicated as the American people and their history. And I would even challenge one thing that you said at the start there, that it's for Christians and non-Christians. Really, the American Christmas started as non-Christian. The Christians came into it later in the
Very
19th
interesting.
century. We obviously there's a very vast history of Christmas in the world, but in America, the dominant kind of Christian groups, the Puritans, did not celebrate Christmas. They felt it was heretical to name a day for the birth of Christ because it's not in the Bible. Um, and the choice of December 25th was in the fourth century um, because it was a Roman civic holiday. And it brought many groups together who were already celebrating either pagan or um, secular winter solstice kind of celebrations and winter harvest, all of these things on that day as the birthday of the sun, the sun. So we have this amazing history of all sorts of groups coming together to celebrate on the same day, and it's the same in American history um, of
This is
all
why
of
we do
these.
this show, folks, because sometimes even your host socks get knocked off. I've never professed to be a historian. This is why we interview
Well,
historians.
it's a prevalent thing, and that's why I write the book, right? That's why we talk about these things because there are so many more narratives, and I think especially with Christmas, sometimes it can feel very exclusionary. But really, the American Christmas belongs to every American,
Mm.
regardless of race, religion, or heritage. It is a profoundly American holiday, and in the 1800s, in 1870 specifically. President Grant made it a civic holiday, and it developed in our history as a patriotic day. So it's like imbued with all of these patriotic American values and civic virtues that we profess, goodwill to each other, the reflection on society and how we can make it better, how we can better serve our fellow Americans. And I think that's part of why it developed in this way. There's this patriotic value side, and then there's also this pageantry side to Christmas,
Hmm.
where it's just this gorgeous, magical kind of time of year where things are like cloaked in garland and lights and sometimes snow, and it feels powerful. And every American has a different association with it, right? There are Christian versions of the holiday. You can celebrate it as a Christian. You can celebrate it as a non-Christian. You can have all sorts of connections. I wasn't raised with religion, but I always celebrated Christmas with my Jewish grandfather. Like, what an American sentence,
All
right?
right. Um, Before we go further, I want to say axlebankhistory.com was designed by Nikki Rideout of Ellie Claire Designs. It has our most recent episodes on it, our featured episodes, and also a link to that Patreon page. So check Nikki's work out. All right. So, what makes a film a Christmas film, and is Die Hard a Christmas film?
Controversial, but I think absolutely yes.
There you go. All right. So, what
I
makes a Christmas film a Christmas film?
so I have two answers to this. The kind of scholarly answer is that for me, it has to be invoking Christmas in some way. And a lot of people say that Die Hard could be set at any time of year, but it's just patently not true. He is an estranged husband going to his estranged wife's job across the country trying to invoke the goodwill and kindness of Christmas and say, it's Christmas, we should get back together. That is not something you can do at any other time of year.
Right.
That
You
would
couldn't
be
base that around
insane.
July 4th or another
No.
holiday. Yeah.
Or even just like a Tuesday. Like he flies from New York to LA to try to convince his wife to take him back. That's the premise. And then it goes off that he's at her office for a holiday party. Like if he just showed up at her office and said, "Take me back," any other time of year, it would be insane. So yes, it's a Christmas film to me. Um, and then the other answer there is that the more human answer is if you watch something at Christmas, if it is part of your Christmas tradition, then it's a Christmas film and nobody gets to tell you otherwise because it's a personal thing, right? Like in the UK, I know a lot of people who watch The Great Escape. It's like their Christmas film is The Great Escape. And that's like, what? What are you talking about? But it's for them. So rock on.
In your book, the acknowledgments are on the first page, and you say that Christmas is a frame of mind. It's sort of a mirror of what we'd like to be year round. Before there were movies, how were Christmas feelings expressed, either in popular culture, either in newspapers or in books?
Yeah, so I mean it's everywhere in American history, right? So one of our best sources in US history is the Lowell Mill Girls um publishing. They had this pamphlet journal magazine that they wrote um of short stories and kind of reflections on life as the Mill Girls. Highly recommend checking it out. It's really great. And this is like the mid 1800s. At the same time that Charles Dickens, came over to the U.S., he fell in love with the Lowell just atmosphere of these working girls also engaging in such an amazing kind of cultural practice of writing creatively to express their thoughts and ideas, even while they were in these kind of long hour, hard labor jobs. And it inspired him to write A Christmas Carol. Um, so like these texts are not unique. Well, I mean, they are unique for the Mill Girls, but in American history, we have a lot of literature. We have like Washington Irving writing about Christmas in A History of New York. He's the first one to really write about Santa Claus in an American context. Then we have like Clement Clarke Moore writing A Visit from St. Nicholas in 1823. And there's a vast literary tradition from the nineteenth century through the 20th. And then we also have like public displays. We have advertisements. We have Santa in department stores in the late 19th century, around 1890. He starts appearing in department stores as a kind of permanent fixture for the community.
And what impact did this popular culture have on people's view of the import of this holiday?
Well, that's a great question. Again, it's so diverse and complicated. There are so many different layers to it. Um, I think one of the most striking examples of this would be the first depiction of Santa Claus by Thomas Nast was on January 3rd, 1863, um, on Harper's Weekly. It was the cover, and it depicted Santa Claus giving gifts to the Union Army. And one of them was a kind of pull string toy of Robert E. Lee that a little bit looked like he was being hanged in effigy um, by Santa Claus. And that was kind of a rallying image for Northern soldiers and also fed into already established kind of Southern Confederate ideas that Santa Claus was a Northern stooge and that the generosity of Santa Claus was kind of a ruse. So it's been political, it's been cultural, it's been social, it's been economic. You really got to pick your poison on that one and dig into what the historical context is for those Christmas depictions.
When and how did you realize that in each era of American history that Christmas has served a political, social, and economic and cultural purpose, as you put it in the book, that exhibits what you call this idealized version of American values?
So so that idea developed out of a book called The Battle for Christmas from 1996 by Stephen Nissenbaum. He's a Christmas historian of kind of up to the 19th century. And I had read that early in my studies for my PhD, but it didn't really sink in until a couple years in when I realized, like, oh, Christmas really is a reframing for me of American history. This lens that we can look through really you can read so many things out of how Christmas is portrayed. What do we choose to focus on in our portrayals of Christmas, and what does that say about us? Is it a critical view of American culture saying that we can live up to the vision, the American promise, the values that we profess if we address our problems in a kind of Dickensian way? Or is it a real idealizing factor like White Christmas, where everything is kind of perfect by the end of it and we treat our soldiers better, our generals better, and there's love for all? Like there are these different kind of as I argue elsewhere, the kind of ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and future, that are present in all of our depictions of Christmas, of what they're saying about who we have been, who we would like to be, and who we are in the present to address it.
And what are the ideals? What are the ideals that this sort of cultural Christmas encourages us to have?
I think for a lot of people, it would be goodwill. It would be um, charity. It would be reflections on our nation and our society. Um, the American Christmas really developed very heavily on Dickens' A Christmas Carol. There's a huge influence on how we think of Christmas, at least up until the mid-century that I study here. And that that challenge that Dickens issues to keep Christmas in your heart all the year is, I think, the real cornerstone of thinking about Christmas in these communal ways, thinking about how your actions impact society and how you can do better going into a new year.
How did you hone in on the age of McCarthy? Is that just because that's when movies started to become written about Christmas, or was there something unique about the McCarthy era that lends itself to study?
So I actually started with the McCarthy era and then found Christmas films as my case study for it because the McCarthy era is um, extremely tumultuous for Hollywood. In the post-war period before McCarthy even comes on the scene in kind of 1950 when he gains prominence with his baseless accusations of communist sympathies and etc. Um, we had an anti-communist movement in the establishment. President Truman had a loyalty order that all federal employees had to pledge that they were not part of a subversive anti-American kind of political sect. And we had the kind of communist threat abroad. It was already a period of kind of suspicion and fear because of the dropping of the atomic bombs that really did mess with people's psyche. The idea that our enemies could have that power was starting to be a pervasive idea and a kind of looming threat, which became even more so after 1949 when other countries were developing nuclear technologies. Um, so this is all going on in the kind of larger frame of American politics and social and cultural, et cetera. In Hollywood specifically, the House Committee on Un-American Activities, or HUAC, as most people know it by, came into Hollywood, subpoenaed filmmakers and writers, producers, directors, et cetera, to testify that they were not communist because the committee was alleging that there was un-American activities happening in Hollywood. That kicks off a whole political strife in Hollywood. The quote unquote Hollywood 10, who were 10 people who refused to answer the question, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party of the United States? They felt it was a violation of their First Amendment rights, so they were held in contempt of Congress. And in response to that, the Hollywood elites, led by Motion Picture Association of America President Eric Johnston, he instituted the blacklist. So this whole period in Hollywood is just reverberating with those larger kind of political contexts around the country that are really magnified onto Hollywood. And all of that starts crashing in on Hollywood. So I really wanted to study how does all of that political pressure on Hollywood affect culture? And I chose Christmas as my frame because it does have that long legacy of American associations and values. And I wanted to see how does that change with all of this activity crashing in on Hollywood.
Were the Christmas movies that they were making, could you see the impact of that pressure in the movies themselves?
I think so. You can read the book if you're listening. You can read the book and find out for yourself. But I
Right.
argue. Well, you can see if you agree with my
Listen
argument.
and read. Listen and read.
Yes. Um, I I argue that we go from those earlier Dickensian contexts that I was mentioning, the kind of communal idea of Christmas, to a much more individualistic one. It's when our kind of modern idea of Hallmark Christmas films, the Hallmark formula for films where they're all like kind of the exact same plot, those tropes come from the 1950s. This kind of simplified version of invoking Christmas. And it's now goodwill and charity, but only for your closest kind of immediate relations. There's no context of a larger societal issue happening in these films. And that's a huge marked change that is also kind of contextual just to this period. We have these looming nuclear threats. We're looking for escapism. And there is nothing more escapist than a Christmas rom-com, you know?
Yeah, where we're not even talking about society, what's happening in politics,
Hmm.
what the difficulties around Christmas might bring, whether it's family or
Yeah.
how you're celebrating it. You point out that these films featured largely white characters who are in straight relationships. And that's true even of the Home Alone movies. I mean, people have a joke
Hmm.
about going through the movie and looking for anyone who's not white. It's hard to find somebody who's not white in those movies. What is that a reflection of?
So that's um a few things, especially in this period. There is still a lot of, I mean, we're still pre a robust civil rights movement, right? Like Sidney Poitier is only recently on the Hollywood scene. Um, Hollywood is not as diverse as it later becomes in this period. Um, Throughout the rest of kind of Christmas films, I do think it's also harkening back to this era because this era of Christmas films really is such a nostalgia kind of touchstone for a lot of Americans and a lot of American filmmakers. We think of this period as this kind of high watermark of Christmas films. It's the ones that you've at least heard of, if not seen many times. It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, White Christmas, Babes in Toyland. Like these are classics. And I do think that a lot of films still harken back to these setups or these like ideas. So we have a lot of films about family, even if it's like playing on the idea of family, like a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where it's like we are still a tight-knit family dynamic, but we're kind of kooky and weird because it's the 80s now, you know? Um, we desperately need a lot more diversity in films. And we have been seeing that a little bit. Hallmark even has tried to diversify their Christmas films, but they do still end up in kind of a monogamous marriage situation, even if it's not heterosexual, it's still pretty normative. Um, and yeah, we are woefully behind the ball on this. There are very few actually Christmas films about non-white people.
I
Um,
want to I want to ask how you put this all together. Did you sit and watch movies for hours on end, taking notes? Did you rely on your memory of these movies for these? Um, how did you? What was your process in going through and analyzing each film?
Yeah, so in the first year of my PhD, I spent the first about 3 months every day in an archive at the British Film Institute. Um, and then for about 2 weeks, I watched films constantly. And I have a document, a Word document that is at least longer than the book of just annotations of these films. Um, when you're annotating a film for film analysis, it takes about 3 times as long of the runtime to watch it. So it really took about 2 weeks to just watch Christmas films and think about, all right, what are the connections? What do I need to think about more? What themes are consistent across them? And some of the films didn't end up in the book. There are more Christmas films in this period, but there's only so much space you can write in a book. Um, so yeah, there were so many. And then that continued throughout my PhD. Anytime somebody was like, oh, well, this one's kind of vaguely Christmas, I would have to like go watch it and be like, okay, does this fit in? And sometimes like The Apartment was an addition that I added later because I wasn't thinking about The Apartment as a Christmas film, but it is, it really is.
I once
Uh,
watched 6 movies in one day, and that is too many movies. Did you find yourself forcing yourself to pay attention and to
yes.
take a break?
Yeah, because some of them aren't good. Some of them are quite rough to get through. Like the last film in the book is Pocket Full of Miracles. It's a Capra film that ended his career because it was so poorly received. And I defend Capra ardently, but that film is bad. And like he didn't want to make the film. He didn't want to make it, and I see why he didn't want to make it. He was forced into it by the studios. But it's like 2 hours and 17 minutes, which is long for this period.
Mm.
And it's not good. It's just like a slog. And I remember it was the last one that I watched after like 2 weeks of just like films. And I was documenting this on like my Instagram story
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the 2 weeks. And I
yeah.
was just like my eyes are bleeding. Like I can't get through this one. It was
So,
rough.
are you able, when the movies come on this time of year, with your kids and husband, are you able to have fun watching Christmas movies, or are
Oh
the pe
yeah.
and are the people around you able to have fun, or are you pointing stuff out the whole time, going, "Well, the thing about this and the thing about that is," do you
That's
have
a
to
great
turn that off?
question. I definitely do turn that off when I am watching with people who aren't my husband because he Ben would love he welcomes like
Yeah.
let's pause it and
Pause
talk,
it and talk. Yeah, right, right.
but
My
only if
wife
it's a
is
film
not a
we've
pauser.
seen.
My wife is not a pauser and talker. She likes to go
Hmm.
through.
Yeah, I wouldn't subject anyone else to that. But I definitely can, and that's something that I like to say is that like a lot of people are like, "Thanks for ruining my favorite movie," and I'm like, "I didn't ruin it. I gave you context. Like it's different." But it's important because a lot of these messages are very latent in these films, right? They're like subtext. And it's important for us to watch things more actively and be aware of the messages that are in them, especially when there is so much kind of social conservatism happening. And we're in a period when that could be kind of controversial or counter to some of your other ideals in your own life. It's important to at least be aware that that's what we're consuming so that you can decide, is this politically for me? Is it socially for me? But that doesn't mean don't watch them. Like I love Hallmark Christmas films. I love like trash films, and they are that. It's my garbage escapism. And I don't necessarily agree with some of the politics or social presentations within them, but I still enjoy them. So I think the real like takeaway of this book, especially, is to keep enjoying your favorites, keep watching them. Just be more critically aware of what you are consuming, because it can be propagandistic, um, in ways that might not gel with your own ideologies.
Many people who have come on this show routinely say that it takes many books to make a book. How much
Mm.
scholarship did you rely on in order to build up your base of knowledge and also to understand what hadn't been explored yet?
So much. Um, so much because especially because I was not a film historian or really a historian of the McCarthy era before my PhD. I studied ancient cultures and pretty much primarily ancient cultures, and a little bit of like 1948 Manhattan for one of my masters. So when I started the PhD, I had a lot of catching up to do with film scholarship and theory and um, Hollywood history, and then our political moment in the post-war period and throughout the 50s. That like there was so much historical context that I needed to understand what I was seeing in these films.
How did, when you mentioned what you were seeing in these films, I'm curious, how did American conservatism seize on the idea of a Christmas movie as being a useful vehicle for their political ends? You mentioned this sort of propagandistic aspect to
Mhm.
these movies. What did American conservatism realize about how these films could be useful?
So I do think there's an important distinction here to make between political conservatism and social conservatism, because at this time in our history, they were still two separate things. Identity politics for conservatives really come in like the 70s, when we have this push for consolidation of social and political conservatism. So we're before that period here. Both parties were anti-communist. As I said, Truman really kicked off these legitimizing factors of anti-communism as US policy, both at home and abroad. Um, And then McCarthy often ran with it in insane ways. So part of the social conservatism here was bipartisan. The idea of kind of domestic containment is very prevalent in the book and in these films that that is kind of the idea of the nuclear family, that you can't control things outside of the home because there's fear, there's suspicion, there's nuclear threats constantly all around us. But what you can control psychologically and literally is your family unit. So that's like the idea of the nuclear family. And that was a pervasive idea in this period. Um, we have this kind of conformity idea as a mainstream vehicle for sanity, for being okay with the like threat of nuclear annihilation. Um, so Christmas, I think, is a real kind of natural vehicle for feeling safe, right? And having these kind of comforts, that magical quality of Christmas where everything kind of feels okay. And you don't have to think about larger contexts if you don't want to. I think it's a real cushiony kind of comforting holiday, and like expression of the family and all of those things that make it make sense that we do consolidate into these like rom-com ideas.
And the
These,
hugging at the end and the, oh, gee, I've
yeah.
learned something at the end.
Yeah, and there's a real idea of financial and physical security in the family unit. And that's why marriage, especially heteronormative marriage in this period is so pervasive, is in these films, is the idea of security, that you
The
are now in a closed family unit, that is controlled.
the period that you study, from what I remember, I should have written it down, ends in 1961.
Mhm.
How do the movies change as we get into the 70s and 80s and then ultimately into the my heyday, at least the Home Alone
Hmm.
movies? How do Christmas movies evolve to where this idea of insecurity is now, a big part of it? I mean, I think about movies like Fred Claus and Four Christmases and sort of these threats against the, as you put it, the typical family unit.
Mhm.
Um, how did the movies start to change as we left the McCarthy era?
So it's a great question, and there are, again, so many layers. But if we keep thinking about like Christmas films as social mirrors, as bringing in their social and political, cultural, economic contexts, it makes a little sense that throughout the 60s and 70s, we're really addressing the baby boom. So a lot of Christmas media is now on television, not coming through Hollywood. And it's aimed at children, like the Rankin Bass productions, the 1966 How the Grinch Stole Christmas on CBS. Like there are these real kind of child-centric ideas of Christmas that are on TV specifically, and that's a whole different animal from Hollywood. Um, and then in the 80s, Hollywood returns to Christmas, um, in a more major way. There are a couple things dotted around through the 60s and 70s, but mostly it's TV. So in the 80s, we get films like A Christmas Story, which comes out in the early 80s, another peak of nuclear threats in the US. And A Christmas Story is this nostalgia-laden film for 1940, a pre-atomic era. And I think that's a fascinating element of that film, that it's like addressing the trauma of the Cold War by saying, actually, let's spend Christmas in a completely different time that doesn't have any of this pressure. Fascinating. Then we get like Gremlins, which is a horror Christmas film that is tapping into a lot of like social and political fears in that moment. Die Hard in '88 is the same, tapping into political and social fears. As an action Christmas film, that year we also get Scrooged from Bill Murray, which is a very kind of a fascinating take on A Christmas Carol that really roots it in an 80s idea of the importance of countering narratives from like Wall Street, a film from 87, um, and putting them in context or not ideas, but like portrayals of like the flashy kind of Wall Street guy. Um, that challenges a lot of those narratives. And then yeah, we get to the 90s and there's an explosion of ways to consume media, right? So we have like home video, we have like the cinema, we have TV movies, all of these things. So like I refer to the 90s as the like everything but the kitchen sink period of Christmas films. Like Disney is just throwing like super low budget films out, like Beauty and the Beast 2, The Enchanted Christmas comes in the 90s. Super low budget, just like throw it out another Christmas film. And then we get like kind of mid-budget ones like Home Alone and like Jingle All the Way. Um, and then there are high budget ones as well that are nostalgic for the 40s, like The Preacher's Wife is a remake of The Bishop's Wife from 1947. And there's a new Miracle on 34th Street that's also updated for the 90s. Um, so we have a lot of nostalgia in this period, eking into the Christmas films again. Actually, every period has a lot of nostalgia. I don't know.
So
Every does.
we have to ask about the elf period because when you talk to people
Yes.
who were born, really any time, I guess, but Elf in a lot of ways has become the Christmas movie. For whatever reason, it has surpassed probably all of the other ones. The others have kind of
Mm.
faded, even Miracle on 34th Street, even It's a Wonderful Life. Elf is sort of the Christmas movie for this time. How do you reflect on the mirror that Elf is showing towards society?
It's a great question. And recently in another conversation about this book, somebody brought up the idea that Elf is um, a kind of follow-on, a 21st century commentary on Miracle on 34th Street. And I had never thought of that before. But it's a fascinating through line to this modern period and what what department stores mean now, what Christmas means now. We have this character who is in Elf, the Will Ferrell character, Buddy the Elf. I haven't seen Elf in a long
Yeah,
time,
yeah. Oh my God.
but
I've seen it 10,000 times because my daughter watches it like in June, like 1,000 times a day. But go ahead.
that's fun. Um, it's this film about kind of lost family, right? Or found family,
And
um,
adoption.
and adoption, and the the idea that you can make a family. And I do think it's a very post 9/11 film.
Yeah, and she's
It's
struggling and her
yeah,
water, she says in the film, my water was turned off and she's showering at the store.
yeah,
And then Elf is kind of adopted by this very secure financially family who's got sort of the Grinchy father.
yeah. Um, which I think is commenting on a lot of tropes. There's very commonly like a Grinchy father in especially like these like early 1947 kind of films, um, who has to learn the true meaning of Christmas to appreciate his family more. Um, and I do think that that's in there. But I think there's a really pervasive idea that also goes to something else that you were saying earlier. In these modern Christmas films, this kind of crisis of faith in Christmas and the idea that like Santa can't deliver presents if we don't believe in him. It's a kind of
Right. And they all sing at
Tinkerbell
the
effect.
end. Right. They sing at the end and they
Yeah.
literally lift his sleigh into the air with their song.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really striking image because we in the 21st century especially um, do have a lot of crises of faith and in the ideals of goodness and goodwill and community and just working together as a society. I think we're an extremely individualistic society right now, especially. And I think that these films of the last like 30 years or so that have these specific elements of that Tinkerbell effect of us not believing in the Christmas spirit really reflect that idea that actually we're not doing Christmas right anymore. We're not a solid American community anymore, and we really need to get back to that. It's especially a post 9/11 idea of like we need to pull together. We really, really need to be there for each other. And in these, like classically, like Christmas in America go hand in hand in a lot of these traditions. So in that way of like, do we believe in democracy? Do we believe in our democracy? Do we believe in each other as a society? I think that's really coming through in a lot of Christmas films in the 21st century.
Start singing, folks. Maybe we can lift
Yes.
everything up that way. All right. So, as a Jew living in America, as I am, it is apparent from a very young age that there is no competing with Christmas. As much as we love Hanukkah,
Mm,
and Hanukkah's, our religion, and we take it seriously, Christmas is everywhere, every day for a month and a half.
mhm.
What do you make of the expansion, particularly in the Hallmark genre, of going into the Hanukkah movies? Every year they release probably, I don't know how many it is, but maybe 10 Christmas movies or 8 Christmas movies, and there's now one or two Hanukkah movies. What does that say to you about this attempt to sort of transfer the Christmas ideal to a different religion and a different holiday?
So two things there. Hallmark actually puts out over like 400 films,
A
like
year?
Christmas films. So yes, like annually. Like there are so many now. And that was an explosion in the last few years. There's a new like Hallmark Christmas channel that is like year
Just
round,
all
just
day
Christmas
their
films. So like
movies. Okay.
they're like
Well,
it's a
excuse me.
lot
I
more.
guess I only see 8 of them a year.
Just the yeah.
Okay.
It would be impossible to keep up with. But yeah, when I saw that stat, it's staggering. Like it is crazy
I guess I
how
just see
much they're
fewer,
putting
but
out.
go ahead.
But yes, the, I think this is part of the diversity idea, and this is controversial, I would say. But again, Christmas historically is for every American, and I only see it as a positive to counter narratives that it is exclusionary, that it belongs to one particular group. Um, and I think it's important. I think it's important that we challenge that narrative. So, as someone without a religion, but who studies something that can be interpreted as religious, I think it's important to expand our idea of what we think of as the holiday season.
It feels
And
particularly good for me to see a pop culture representation of my holiday, even if it
good.
doesn't necessarily mirror exactly what is happening in my brain or in my family on Hanukkah.
Good. I love that for you. And
Thank you.
I love that we can have and we should have more representations of what Americans celebrate. What are we tapping into? Because Christmas and Hanukkah are so oftenly um juxtaposed as though they are like one-to-one equivalents and you celebrate one or the other. And one, I don't think that's true because again, Christmas is not specifically a religious celebration only. But they're different holidays. Like they have different associations and different contexts and different values that you're celebrating throughout them. So I think it's an unfair juxtaposition, but it has become one in our pop culture that it's like they're like fighting forces for some reason. So I welcome the idea of expanding what we think of as this holiday season and having more pop culture context for how people navigate it.
How should people watch their Christmas movies this year? I've already seen a couple of them.
Mm.
What what needs to be on our mind as we A, try to enjoy the film, and B, try to think about what it represents in all of us and how we can use it to make ourselves better?
So one of the things that I've really been harping on this year, especially, is that Dickensian challenge. The idea of reflecting on society, reflecting on how you conduct yourself in society, what your actions mean to other people, and doing better. that is what we were we were asked to do in A Christmas Carol. And I think that we very commonly um, uh, kind of relegate it to this passive thing. All Christmas films really become this real passive thing of just like, oh yeah, this is just contained as Christmas. And it's not. The idea of goodness should not be something that is only relegated to December. And so I would really love to get that idea into people's minds that these are not films contained by the last 2 weeks of December. They're films about who we are and who we would like to be the other 11 months of the year. I think that's a really powerful thing that these films could do for us is remind us that we are a community, we are individuals, but in a society. And society can only work if individuals are working together. So it's it's the Dickensian challenge. That's what you should be watching out for in your films this year.
All right, we're going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to put you on
Hmm.
the spot here. Favorite Christmas movies, we're going to rank them. I'll give you mine, okay? So mine are Home Alone 1 and 2
Hmm.
in the top two slots. I'm never sure which order they go in. The New York aspect of the second one is irresistible for me. So I'll leave them in slots 1 and 2. I love Fred Claus.
Hmm.
I also love the episode of Seinfeld where Kramer dresses up as Santa. And then I've got to say Elf because it's come to mean so much to my daughter. So to our daughter. So
It's very
those would
sweet.
be my five.
Top five. Okay. Um, I I don't know if these are in a particular order, but I really love It's a Wonderful Life. I've spent so much time with that film in my life, just like personally and then now also professionally. I love it. It's fantastic, especially when you get to see it in a cinema, like a small cinema with just like packed with people. It's fantastic. Um, I also really love White Christmas from '54. That's another nostalgia one for me. And it was just so special to get to study both White Christmas and It's a Wonderful Life. Modern ones, The Holiday, perfect film. 10 out of 10, perfect film. Um, Klaus, the animated film from 2019, Sergio Pablos, absolute perfect film. Highly recommend. Absolutely stunning 2D or completely hand-drawn film. Check it out. And then
I think that's four.
that's four. Yeah. Oh, I really like Holidays. That's
Never
one.
saw it.
It's uh it's on Netflix. It's not specifically about Christmas, but it's about these two people who are only dating on holidays. Like they're always each other's plus one to holiday parties, like throughout the year, like St. Patty's Day, 4th of July, Mother's Day, and then they ultimately all obviously get together on Christmas. But fantastic, just fun movie. It's good.
Favorite Christmas songs?
Ooh. Um,
I got
I
to go
mean,
Darling Love, and I got to do Mariah, and then
yeah,
I got to do the Britney Spears, whatever that song is called. I don't remember their names.
fair enough. Um, yeah, I have a real soft spot for the classics. Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, Nat King Cole, the Christmas song. What a classic. Just perfect song. Um, and I do like Bublé.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my wife likes that one.
Yeah.
Most overrated Christmas movie. What's the one you think that's just gets too much press?
Ooh, controversial, but National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
it doesn't do it for me. I'm not a Chevy Chase person.
Gotcha. All right. Lastly here, or next to last, your dedication is to three people. Pop Pop, who you call Kris Kringle himself, Papa Bill for teaching you that Santa is a teamster, and Pappy Bernie, who is your Jewish Santa, as you put it,
Yeah.
but who embodied the Christmas spirit every day of his life. How did you decide on those three
I
Santa-like figures for you?
I can't believe you're asking this.
I
What a
always ask about the
sweet
dedication.
what a sweet question. Um yeah, there I had three grandfathers. My papa David looked like Santa. Like he had the white beard, white hair, dressed up as Santa for kids every year at the YMCA. Like he was Santa. I have this amazing picture of him in his Santa suit holding me as a baby, and I'm just like screaming my head off because as a child I was terrified of Santa, which is also really funny that this is where I ended up. Um, and yeah, Pappy, my Pappy Bernie, he was the most Christmassy person I knew, and he's Jewish, and I think that's why I have such a like secular kind of idea of Christmas that it is not tied to Christianity because the most like ardent supporter of Christmas in my life by far was my Jewish grandfather. Um
And then your
and
Teamster, your Pappy
yeah,
Bernie. This feels very diehard to me.
my papa, yeah, he on his truck, his pickup truck, he had a bumper sticker that said Santa is a Teamster. And it just stuck in my memory as this just phenomenal idea of
A
now,
union
obviously
man.
not as a child, I wasn't thinking about this, but now the idea that Santa is a union man, that he is only possible because of unions is so American. What a great 20th century idea of Santa as a Teamster. Yeah, I love it.
What's next for you? Do you think you'll do another movie book or Christmas book?
Yeah, so um not Christmas, but movie and nostalgia based for the 1950s, depictions of the 50s since that decade, and how each iteration of the 50s tells us more about the contemporary moment that it does about the 50s, what we choose to highlight in it. So an example is like Stepford Wives. There's a novel in 72, a film in 74, a film in 2002, and one in 2023. And each version taps into different things that really map onto that current moment of its production. So nostalgia for the 50s in pop culture.
Bon Joy, the author of Selling Out Santa, Hollywood Christmas Films in the Age of McCarthy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Check out the book and also her Substack, which is G. Von Joy. I want to invite listeners to our Patreon page to ask for your support in keeping the show going. Go to patreon.com/AxelBankHistory. We're going to donate part of your contributions to a charity for children's literacy. AxelBankHistory.com was designed by Nikki Rideout of Ellie Claire Designs. It has our most recent episodes on it, our featured episodes, and also a link to that Patreon page. So check out her work, and thank you for listening to Axelbank Reports, History and Today, conversations with America's top nonfiction authors and why their books matter right now. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Axelbank History. We update those with clips from the show, guest announcements, and book recommendations. See you next time. Thanks.